Welcome, everybody. Welcome. We'll get started in just a second. Let everybody filter in here. All right, let's get started. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Heartland Education. The session today is Marketing Lessons Gained from the Pandemic. So thank you for joining us. My name is Larry Law. I'm the Executive Director of the Great Lakes Independent Booksellers Association and one of the co-directors of Heartland. I am joined today by Kate Scott of MEBA, our Heartland partner. Hello, Kate. Please note that this event is being recorded and will be made available later this week. As well, I will be saving the chat, and that will also be available with the video on the Heartland Fall Forum website. Before we begin today, I'd like to mention a few of our upcoming Heartland events. We have a bunch more through the end of October. I'll mention the next upcoming three. We have 3 upcoming education sessions. The first one on Tuesday, October 5th. And that is Don't Be Intimidated by Shelf Talkers, led by Kristen Sandstrom of Apostle Island Books. Then on Thursday, October 7th, we have Trans-Inclusive Bookselling, led by H. Melt from Women and Children First. And then on Tuesday, October 12th, we have How to Work with Your Rep in This New Age, led by Melissa Weisberg from Macmillan. We have several more events coming up through the end of October, including our awards ceremony on the 14th. So please join us for that. We'll be announcing our award winners live again this year during the ceremony. And then Kate Scott will be throwing a link to all of our upcoming events in the chat, so please check that out. Now I would like to introduce our educators for today. First up, we have Mark Loeffler from Seminary Co-op Bookstores. Mark has been on one side of the counter or another at Seminary Co-op since moving to Chicago in 1997. After completing graduate work at the University of Chicago, he moved across the street and has been working in events and marketing at the co-op since 2018. He has been a marketing manager since 2020. Next up, we have Marina Malazoniya. Marina joined Seminary Co-op Bookstores in 2017 as a part-time bookseller and was promoted to the role of events coordinator the following year. Her passion for bookselling and community engagement continued to grow, and in 2019 led her to the role of a marketing manager at the store. Next up, we have Alana Haley from Nicola's Books. Although relatively new to the book world, serving as the marketing coordinator for Schuler Books and Nicola's Books for 3 years, Alana Haley is a lifelong reader and lover of bookstores and libraries. She has spent her entire career in marketing everything from diamonds to hardware and plants to wedding venues. And then our moderator for today is Tim Smith from Schuler Books. Tim is the operations manager for Schuler Books and Nicola's Books. Tim has worked at the bookstore for about 25 years and has served in many roles during this time. He has worked in the marketing department, managed specific store locations, and now works with the general managers of each store to support their work of connecting people with books. Tim currently serves as the vice president on the GLEBA board. And now I will turn it over to Tim.
Thank you, Larry, and thanks for everyone for being here. Today we have, of course, a topic that we've all been dealing with and could probably talk about for a good long while, but we'll try to cram in as much as we can in an hour. The structure of the talk today will be the presenters will go through some common things that they've encountered, and then Mark and Marina will talk specifically about things that they've done at their place, and then Alana will do the same thing. And then at the end, we will have kind of a wrap up and time for questions at that time. But also, if you have a pressing question during the talk, go ahead and put it in the chat. There's a couple of us watching that, and we'll pull out any pertinent ones during the topic that's being spoken about, if that seems appropriate. So, Mark, I'll let you just kind of kick us off with the first section.
Sure, I'll be happy to. Thanks very much, Larry and Tim. I think we wanted to start by comparing notes with Alana about some of the discussions that we were having at the very beginning of the pandemic. That focused for us on a few challenges. First, we know that part of our product, if you will, is the browsing experience itself. And so we questioned how we could approximate that experience with our doors closed. And second, we were concerned to find substitutes for face-to-face interactions with our customers. And that was on one hand, a concern for sustaining our external communities, but also on the other hand, those kinds of interactions between booksellers and customers are really central to store morale, and so important to our internal community as well. Third, we were very concerned to find a way of pivoting to virtual events, but a way that also respected the extraordinary time and energy that were required to transform the store into a safe, socially distanced space to fulfill mail orders. Those are all tall orders, and I think I'll turn things over here to Alana to discuss some of the parallel conversations I'm sure that were occurring there.
Yeah, so, you know, same concerns, obviously, as I'm sure all of you listening in had as well. When everything kind of shut down, our first discussion was, well, what can we do? What can we do differently? How can we continue to solve problems for our customers while keeping both them and our staff safe? And how do we create, with the tools that we have, that interactive environment and keep customers engaged with us, and as Mark said, give them that experience of browsing in the store when they can't be browsing in the store. And so that's when, you know, you turn to the tools that you have, the tools that you're good at. And as you'll find as we go along, what we did at Schuler Books and Nicola's Books, and what Mark and Marina did at Seminary Co-op were very, very different approaches, but they were tailored specifically to leveraging those tools that you had at your disposal, and what you were good at. So.
For sure. Yeah, that's right. Marina, would you like to add anything to that part of the conversation?
Well, I want to thank all of you for coming today and say that indeed, you know, pandemic made us to do both things, really, to look at things creatively and approach things creatively with, you know, world kind of going upside down, but also really commit to things that we're really good at, you know, things that we do best. And kind of, this was our starting point here. You know, I'll be talking later about digital catalog that we develop and so forth. But perhaps we first want to start with something like newsletter and email. I'll turn it over to Alana, maybe.
Yeah. So first up, I'm going to talk social media. So fortunately, we already had a pretty strong social media presence on both Facebook and Instagram. And so right away, our thoughts were, how do we leverage that? How do we use those tools? And our social media, or our event coordinator, excuse me, Samantha, saw the possibility right away of just actually using packages to get things to customers that we had in store and that they maybe needed. So one thing that we did right away was she created packages, which I know there are probably stores on this call that maybe have already been doing that even before the pandemic, but it was new to us. And we used our social media to sell for the first time ever. I mean, you're always selling on social media, but it's not a hard sell. You're not actually transacting on your social media channels. And so she created Easter packages. I'm so sorry for that train coming by. I never know when it's going to happen. Mother's Day packages, self-care packages for COVID relief. And those we took live on Facebook and Instagram. We also created online puzzle sales of puzzles and games, which we did once a week and became a huge hit. With a big following and customers asking, you know, when is the next one going to happen? So we had to kind of schedule a day of the week or 2 days of the week for these sales to happen. So because people were waiting for these things, and we came up with new systems to be able to make this work, from how people ordered from a picture on social media to how we shipped it out to them. And that's where the getting creative part came in. So let me share my screen really quickly and I can show you some of what we came up with. Okay, is it working?
Yeah.
All right. Except mine disappeared.
Yeah, it just did.
Okay, there we go. All right, let me go back here. Come back screen. Sorry, it worked fine when we tested it. Okay, we're just going to do it this way so I don't lose everybody again. All right, so you can see we just put together packages at a specific price point because we figured that would be easiest instead of having people pick and choose things. And what we told them was, we'll give you a package that's very similar to this, but maybe not exact, but it's going to be worth $50. And we started selling them like crazy. So we had packages for kids, we had packages for adults, we had packages for Mother's Day, packages for self-care, and we took them live on Facebook and on Instagram. Here's an example of some of our puzzle sales. So we would have slideshows of puzzles, and we got smart after a while, after answering 20 million questions about, I can't read that, how many pieces are in that puzzle? And actually put the name of the puzzle and the pieces on there to also assist them in ordering it. Instead of, just that puzzle with the one picture that I think says this. So we got smarter as we went, but basically it was just pictures of groups of puzzles on social media, and we sold ridiculous amounts of puzzles. Here is one of our game posts on the right, same thing. We chose games that we, had multiples of so that we could sell through more than just what we showed. We did the same for puzzles. And then we also started directing them to our website. Eventually, we were able to get pretty quickly puzzles and games up on our website to sell directly from there. So that worked really well when we had to be shut down and we couldn't allow people in the store. Additionally, we started doing shop by appointment. We set up appointments on the half hour at each store and started directing traffic from social media. Here's how you make an appointment. And then we were allowed to have a limited number of booksellers in the store. So we were super spread out. Everybody was masked. We were taking all the precautions, but we were able to talk with customers on the store, FaceTime them, and help them shop while they couldn't be there. And then we also used our social media to inform people and manage expectations, because things were changing so rapidly that we would just kind of implement, okay, here's how things are going to be. Here's what we're allowed to do. Here's how we can help you shop with us. And it would change. And our governor, blast her, used to do this almost every Friday afternoon. And I remember one Friday just bursting into tears because, she would do this leading into the weekend when you hoped you might have a little bit of time off from social media, but alas, no. We would have to get ready for changing everything all over again. And this really helped customers know exactly what to expect when they were allowed to come back in the store, or how to use our curbside shopping, or how to shop by appointment. These are just a couple more examples from our Nicola store showing kind of how our curbside worked. We can bring it right to customers' cars if they prefer not to pick it up in the tote. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of some of the things we did to sell on social media. We also did some Facebook Live videos. We didn't really use live on social media before the pandemic much. But it made sense to be able to take a selfie stick and walk through the store just to show customers what we did have, because it was changing kind of what people needed at any given time. And so we could always show them what was on the front table, what was happening in, seasonal things that they might be interested in. So over time, once we were able to invite customers in the store, we obviously phased out the hard selling on social media, and focused on driving customers to the website if they were afraid to come into the store shopping still, and then curbside, all of the other things. We had a lot of balls in the air. And we kept those videos showing what was in store through the holidays. That was kind of one of our holiday selling things that we did as well. Every time we got new merchandise in, or we would feature, here's gifts for kids, here's gifts for, grown-ups, all of those sorts of things. And then the last thing we did on social media before I'll kind of wind it up is Tim had an idea that connecting, that bookseller wanting to sell books that was really missing. And Mark talked about how, internally, we needed that also. And so his solution was to do a video live Tim Talk every Tuesday, where he would talk about the new releases that he was really excited about. And he quickly got a big following on his Tim Talks. And that is something that we actually continue today. Tim is too busy to do those himself very often anymore, but the other booksellers love them, and they have jumped in and turned it almost into like a little 15-minute talk show where they talk about the books they're most excited about. And we cover all different genres over time, which is great. So there are some things that we had to be creative and do, and some things, kind of fell away, and other things became things that we wanted to keep and carry on. So Seminary Co-op was very, very kind early on to go over with us via Zoom how to actually create a store on social media and make your posts shoppable. And so that was something that we tried, but ultimately didn't really fit within the rest of our marketing plan. And so we abandoned it. However, I know that for them, that's something that worked, and maybe for other stores as well. So it just goes to show that what works for one store might not work for every store. And ultimately, the biggest benefit was that the marketing we did on social media cemented in our customers' minds that they were able to get books and a lot of other merchandise from their local independent store right now, with better service and quicker delivery than the other shoppable online platform and the big box stores. And so we got a lot of increased customer loyalty, and we gained so many new customers, which is something that you always want to do. So best possible results for sure.
Yeah, and I would say too, what you sort of hit on is, we tried lots of things that didn't work. And there's going to be many things that will go on in the future. So regardless of the size of store you have or the scope of what your store does, whether it's a seasonal store or whatnot, a lot of these things can be really tailored to what you feel like you have time for, or what you feel like you can actually accomplish.
And then real quick before we get into what Mark and Marina have to talk about, I wanted to talk about e-newsletters because we used our e-newsletters to do as much heavy lifting as social media did for us. And fortunately, we also had a pretty good weekly email program. And we ramped up the quantity of our e-newsletters in the beginning of the pandemic and used them again to communicate that information as things changed, and to try and recreate that sense of community and connectedness that was missing from having customers in the store. We made sure that we coordinated all of our messaging with what we were doing on social media. And we knew that we were succeeding due to the many bazillion emails we received in return. Just wonderful emails from our customers. And that's what kind of kept us going when things were tough. And we're just kind of throwing things and seeing what would stick. But that customer feedback was so wonderful. Both our open and click-through rates increased considerably immediately, and eventually settled 2 to 3 points above pre-pandemic rates. So even now, after the height of right after the pandemic, when open rates shot super high because people were starved for information, wanted to stay connected, we continue to have way higher than pre-pandemic rates for both open and click-through rates for our weekly emails and specialty emails, which is an awesome result. But most importantly, those emails really drove sales to our website for us. So the lessons, and this is just good practices, and we were doing this before, but make sure you link everything in your email. Link the photos, link the book titles, link your call to action buttons. Use a lot of call to action buttons. People may not know to click on a photo. People may not even click on an underlined link, especially some of your older customers, but they will understand a button that says buy now, or, you know, click here for more information. So make sure you use all of those things. The other thing is, keep your format simple so that it scales well to mobile and is easy to read there. So I'll show you our email, a couple email examples in a second. They're not glamorous. They're not super fantastic. They're very simple and straightforward, but they're really easy to shop. And they scale really, really well to mobile and are easy to shop on mobile because we're getting more mobile customers every day. And more people are shopping on their phones. And if your email is really busy and it doesn't scale well, it makes it harder for people to shop. And therefore, you know, the more obstacles that there are, the less likely they are to click through and buy something on your website. So let me see if I can pull these up really quickly.
While you're pulling those up, Alana, do the three of you feel like there are specific things to keep in mind when you're using the links, as far as like make them very direct, or as far as what you want the activity to be from them, or are there certain keywords that have worked really well for you?
Well, on our end, we, you know, as Alana said, like link everything. That's actually a great point, and it is very powerful, especially in nowadays when, you know, not all people are going to the stores. Some stores are still closed. People, you know, still traveling, being away, and still want to make purchases. We do use bit.ly links sometimes, which gives you, you know, like a quick analytics. You can really and you know, you don't need to have a bit.ly account, really. You can have a free account, and it would just give you like a nice insight. Simple demographics, simple clicks is what we found useful.
Yeah.
Okay, are we seeing it?
No.
Darn it. Okay. Let's try it again.
I'll say too, while we you know, trying to pull this up, is that it's in how, as Alana noted, our approaches in our bookstores were different, but there are also similarities in it. For example, you mentioned packs, you know, and just like grabbing things you already have in the stores and just like assembling them in the sort of a product that you put in on social media.
Yes.
You have the image up.
Yeah. So, okay, super simple. A short intro, informational. This is one of our emails early on that's showing kind of customers behind the scenes. Here's what's happening in the store, and here's what it looks like. It explained, you know, shipping to home, curbside pickup, all of those things. Here's that action button, place an order for curbside pickup, making it super simple. Early on, events were kind of a mystery, online events for a lot of people. So showing them what it looks like on their screen, really going through what it means. You don't have to leave home. You don't need to dress up. You get to ask direct questions of the author. You're just kind of doing that educational piece. Here was a link that told them about Zoom where they could download it. Here's a link that took them to our upcoming events right on our website. More event information, direction to our online games, because we finally had gotten our games up. Here's some of the packages that are available for Mother's Day. Let us help you shop by appointment. And then just very simple book links. We found the less information we give with a book, and this is just for us, may not be the case for your store, but we found the less information, the more likely people are to click through, actually. to the page on the website. We always give information on whether or not we have signed copies or if there's anything specific about the book, but that kind of gives you an idea. Let me pull up really quick. This one really shows you like crazy amounts of links. Again, a little intro, link for purchasing puzzles, links for purchasing or for personal shopping. The photo is linked. The Eventbrite registration is linked here. There's a call to action button. The book title is linked. This picture is linked. Just really making it super foolproof for anybody to know what to do. Get the book, register here, watch it on Facebook, and it'll take them right to our Facebook page so they know where to go. Here's another one directing them to the games, and here are some book recommendations. The other thing that we did is we really upped the amount of books that we put in a newsletter because people couldn't be in the store to shop. So we wanted to make it as easy as possible for them. And really good web sales. Can't complain.
Yep. Mark and Marina, would you like to speak about some of the things that you were doing as well?
Sure. Thanks so much, Lana. I have learned a lot already. And I can only affirm a lot of what you have already said. That is, we use some of these same kinds of tools and platforms to meet the challenges that we were facing. We publish a weekly newsletter. We did quite similar things like increasing the number of new releases that we were highlighting on a weekly basis, trying to be extra clear about communication. The piece you showed of being extra clear about event communication was excellent. And we also used both the newsletter and our social media to try to maintain that sense of community, and also to communicate about our policies and capacities while our doors were closed. But we're finding that none of that could quite fill the holes left by the absence of browsers. And so we turned to experiment with a form that was new to us. I mean, you might say it's a new old form, but a digital catalog. And we wanted to touch on a number of details for this. I'm going to turn things over to Marina to begin the discussion of it. And I am going to attempt some screen sharing myself.
Thank you, Mark. Indeed, as we all noted here, as we'll feel here, when the pandemic started and a lot of us had to close our doors, we started, we missed our customers. And what we wanted to achieve is, we wanted to still be able to offer this browsing experience. It's what the bookstore is for. And we, wanted to stay connected with our customers to still feel connection to the stores, which is a great challenge when you can't actually have people in the space. And so we really, started exploring ways to kind of emulate or replicate browsing experience. And we turned to our archives back from when internet was not a thing. Our stores used to produce like a fold, really like a trifold of basically what's on our display, like new releases, and the trifold with the design kind of packaged it nicely as like if you will, an invitation to browsing experience. So we took inspiration from there and thought, what if we put book selections that we put in our newsletter, our front list picks into something like a digital catalog and really package that. One can certainly do that in the PDF. We found a platform called Simple Booklet, and we really liked it because it allowed, not only put custom text and images and designs, it also allowed linking not only entire pages, but also linking singular products. So, that was very convenient for us, and the functionality was really user-friendly and modern. So among the immediate uses, we found that this replicates browsing experience. And, one of our customers got back to us and said that this is as close as they could get to browsing experience when everything is closed. We also found, and on the screenshots on the booklet that Mark shows, all of the books are linked to our website, and you can see there's even like a small cart icon suggesting that you can purchase that book. But as you can see on this picture, we also found that contextualizing those selections, whether it's your newsletter selection or front list, contextualizing them and putting them in the space is very important in the attempt to try to replicate that browsing experience. Want to remind our customers that we're still here, we're still in the space. It's there for them when everyone is ready. I guess I would want to acknowledge that not every bookstore has a physical space. However, there could still be a possibility of sharing, say, maybe have a pop-up shop or something like that, or something that would just remind customers about your stores. And finally, as a third kind of immediate usage was, as Alana noted previously, we missed hand selling books. This is one of the best things a bookseller can do and enjoy, is just like sell books on the floor, sell what they love. And so a simple booklet, this catalog serves sort of as a platform for our booksellers to, express excitement over new publications, or whether new or old, and share their recommendations, really. So that's kind of the immediate usage. And perhaps, Mark, you can talk more about things that we discovered as we started working with this medium.
Definitely. I'll mention a few of the kind of unexpected findings and expanded uses. It also became a place to assemble and distribute a holiday guide for us. I think Marina will maybe show you some images from that. And I'll mention too that for the holiday guide, we also did print physical copies, and we're happy to share the experience of doing so at low cost. Essentially, we ended up working out an arrangement with the Chicago Tribune. We were considering having the catalogs distributed in a Sunday paper, but they were also able to print copies for us at a rate that was a good deal below what professional printers were charging. And we further expanded the use of this into catalogs highlighting small presses and university presses. And that allowed us to support and to build relationships with publishers. It allowed us to give new or potentially overlooked titles the attention and the visibility that they deserve, but in the absence of in-store displays. And we also, in these catalogs, began to feature some interviews with publishers and authors. And in that sense, we created the possibility of spreading knowledge of important work in a format that was perhaps different from virtual events, which perhaps is a segue into another part of our conversation, that is how we've dealt with the question of virtual events.
Apologies, I'm trying to show us our interviews, but something is clearly not working at my end with screen sharing. So here's here's a fraction of an interview. As Mark noted, we just reached out to a publisher and, turned this into, with a little bit of Photoshop work, we turned a page into something like an interview. And on the right side, you can see there is still books and the links. And if you click on that, it will lead here to our product page on our website. Great. I think we would also like to talk about virtual events and how we approach that during the pandemic. Alana, would you like to start? We can certainly do that too, if you would like.
Sure. I think we, again, both took similar but a little bit different approaches. Like continuing to do events was something we knew we wanted to do immediately. And then it was just, how do we go about it? What's our approach going to be? And we made the decision to try to keep our events program basically as close to what we would normally do if it were in person as possible, with the goal of, again, connecting customers with a good experience, giving them that opportunity to maybe discover a new author or a new book. So we quickly went virtual pretty immediately with our weekly story times that we used to do in store. And those, we continue to do everything virtually, actually. So those continue to this day. And we also started to go live again, even with certain events when it made sense. We had some kind of celebrity book authors that were big on Instagram, for example. And so obviously that's the platform where you want to be, because that's where the people who know them are. And so we did our first Instagram live events. We did some Facebook live events for specific authors. And then there are other authors that, you know, wanted more of that kind of intimate feeling that just a private Zoom would provide. And if it was an option, we also would stream those to Facebook. Facebook's making it a little bit tough these days. We used to be able to stream events to both our Nicola's books page and our Schuler's books page, but now they've kind of made that nearly impossible. So we can only stream to one at a time. The other thing we did is if we weren't able to stream or we didn't want to for whatever reason, making that event available on social media or our YouTube channel, wherever it might be after the fact, because we did have a number of customers saying, you know, I can't be there on that date and that time, really wanted to see it. Will you be able to share it after the fact? And so recording those and making them available was something that we did. We wanted to continue to bring events to our customers, and then obviously to support authors and publishers as well. We probably have focused and done well with more local, like Michigan-based authors. That said, we also did an event with John Grisham and had like 250 people. So, you know, we've had story times just live on Facebook to like the John Grisham event and everything in between. And we have not regretted for a second, just kind of keeping that vigorous events program going, even, you know, though it can get to be a little bit of a grind for the person who's always running those Zooms week in and week out. We did see pretty quickly on that we weren't going to see the kind of sales that we would normally see with an in-person event, but, you know, that was not something that deterred us. We continue to just plug away at the virtual events, and there's no magic formula of what's going to work. Sometimes we think they're going to be fantastic and they're just not, and there's no reason you can put your finger on, and then other ones will totally surprise you. So yeah, that's what we have for events. Take it away.
Thank you for that.
I think it was pretty genius also that, you know, the different regionals and publishers that put together some of these joint tours. And I do see some stores that are partnering with one another as well, which are different iterations of being it that we couldn't duplicate with an in-person event, which is pretty wonderful.
Indeed. On our end, I would say that, you know, at the beginning, we took time to figure out how to go about virtual events. You know, we're not very tech savvy. We didn't have like a Zoom platform. We didn't know what Zoom or Crowdcast. It was all completely new area for us, as I'm sure is the case for many bookstores here. So, and because we had to, you know, close the doors and start fulfilling more mail orders than we used to, we're very careful in how we use our, you know, labor resources. And so, you know, it's very hard to predict turnout sometimes for these events. So it was very like new gray area. And it took us a little bit of time to figure this out, of how to proceed on our end. And so the solution that we came up with that is really turned out to be enduring is that we started reaching out to local institutions, like local museums, universities, libraries, and see if they would like to partner with us on an event. We started kind of trying to distribute the labor when working on events, and we would just seek partnership with someone who has experience with tech, or maybe started doing it on their end based on their priorities. Like maybe a library already has it, maybe a museum already has it. And on our end, we just invested time and energy of what we do best. We're fulfilling orders and we're doing publicity. We did that obviously for in-store events, so we kind of already had our steps and our routines laid down. So it was, in that sense, easy for us to pivot once we actually figured out the structure. And the same, I guess, goes for our partnerships that we build. It's probably the case that not all libraries or museums have time to reach out to authors on their own, and this is something we could offer on our end. Mark,
and
talk about further experience with virtual events.
Sure. As we continue working with the model that Marina laid out, there are some maybe less obvious, but nonetheless, as she said, enduring benefits. I think one emergent theme of the panel as a whole is to think hard about mobilizing what you're good at. This does so. We are skilled at connecting readers with new publications. But in doing this, I also think that another benefit is that it might bring a bit more public attention to the roles and to the value of professional booksellers.
Mm-hmm.
We are special when it comes to communicating with presses about events surrounding new releases, and in building partnerships with other institutions, as Marina mentioned, libraries, museums, in our case, university departments. And we can offer that intermediation as a service to those cultural institutions to help with their programming. And the response has been quite good. And as Marina mentioned, it distributes the labor of hosting virtual events in perhaps a better way.
Yeah.
I think maybe just one more lesson too is to think hard about the purposes of events and to be creative about whether there are other possible ways of fulfilling those purposes. So if, for example, we don't find a co-host for a virtual event, or it's not working for multiple parties, then perhaps soliciting other material from authors can help to spread the work. A reading list for a website blog, or a newsletter feature, an interview, a podcast segment for those who have them, or Instagram TV for those who use it. So maybe that's a good segue to some of our overall lessons from all of this. But I leave that segue to you, Tim.
Yeah, sure. One thing I just wanted to ask before we move to that next part is have one of the things that I think has been really exciting for me is, some of the authors that are not published by a big house and don't have huge travel budgets and things like that. It's been really rewarding, I think, to bring them to the forefront as well. And I think really valuable for the customer, as well as expanding the voices that get heard.
And super quick, one thing I didn't think to address is we also did some events that weren't even book related, primarily just for our own fun and to build some excitement for customers. So we took some things outside. We had food trucks in our parking lot regularly. We had a pretzel truck every other week on Saturdays leading into the holidays. That was a huge hit. We hosted a local plant your own succulent bar under a tent in the parking lot. And while all of these things weren't book related, they did bring people ultimately into the store to shop for books as well, as just bring a little bit of joy, both to us and to those customers. So, so events can be very different things than maybe what you might think. Yeah. So
those were pretty low effort things as well, which was fantastic because people loved them, and it was really easy to pull off.
Yep.
Yeah. So why don't we go into those conclusions, and then soon here we'll start answering some questions, and feel free to drop some of those into the chat, or we can take them as they come as well. There's a few in there that we haven't addressed that I'll pull out as well.
So I think we've been talking all along about a lot of the lessons that we've learned, but the one thing I think that we kind of didn't hit on quite as much is be okay with giving up things that aren't serving you or that aren't working. I know that sometimes that's hard to do. For me, that's really hard to do because I want to fix things and I want to make things work if I think they're supposed to. And at some point, you just need to be able to say, you know what, this isn't working for us. We need to move on and do what we're good at. So I guess it kind of leads back into that leverage what you're good at a little bit. There were some things, we gave up all of our print advertising, which I was loath to do because I started in print. I feel for people who work in print right now. You were talking about the Chicago Tribune, that was my paper growing up. But it's expensive as a small business to advertise there. And so we gave those up and we were fine without it. We learned we didn't need to rely on it at all. And we were able to repurpose those resources elsewhere that worked better for us.
Fantastic. I will keep this brief but I will return to the point once more of leveraging what you have and what you're good at. One of the things that we're good at is celebrating new books and curating selections, and we were able to focus on that and build the catalogs into something that's working for us. Another thing, again, that we're good at is connecting readers with new publications, communicating with presses and authors, as I mentioned, and we're able to develop that into some nice new models for event hosting. I'll leave it to Marina to say a bit about what we've learned from the catalogs as well.
Thank you, Mark. And from the catalogs, we learned that there are a lot of resources out there that we already have to put something together with a little bit of thought. You can really conceptualize what you already have and put it in as a product. For example, it is likely that a lot of the stores, and we do too, take pictures of books in the stores and post them on social media. It is likely that Bookstore would send a newsletter with a selection of books. And so what we discovered with the digital catalog is that we use all of these things, but we kind of, with the catalog, think of them strategically. What if the picture that we take for the stores is the picture of selection of books that we use in the catalog that serves kind of two purposes, advertising those books and showing the space. And then once you have the catalog, it's we found it easy to kind of approach that as like, a marketing campaign. So you can repurpose a lot of things. You can put the catalog on your website, thereby creating the content for your website. You can take all of these pictures that you took for the catalog and put them on social media. Just sharing pictures of books in your stores, and B, linking to the catalog. You can create an advertising and marketing campaign for the catalog. We often just use the holiday guide cover, and that's a good enough, like advertising, like a Google post or social media post, what have you. So it really helped us to use the catalog for multiple purposes. Once we open the stores, for people who are new to the stores, we just give it as a guide in a way. This is our selections. This is what we put thought in. You'll see bookseller recommendations too. So it was a nice way to kind of create a marketing campaign around something that we already have at the stores and use. Another thing that we learned is that collaborative approach to virtual events, it emerged during the time of a pandemic, but it really has value regardless of that. We really learned that it is helpful for institutions we partner with, like libraries, museums, etc., because we basically help them put together their event programming, and that has value. And it really shows how a bookstore can be serving in a way as a cultural institution, if you will.
Yeah, and it's so valuable, I think, to have that sense of community with other organizations around us as well. It provides a richer place where people are, for sure.
One thing I wanted to note too is, we're talking about catalog that is kind of like a, it's a project, and not everyone may have resources to produce something like that, but perhaps this approach can be adapted for things like a brochure, or like that is bigger than a newsletter, but not as quite expensive. It could be as simple as, advertising or packaging your window display or front table or in-store displays in a way that is really presenting browsing as a product.
Yeah, for sure. So one of the questions that was in the chat was, how often did you send out newsletters per month? And I'd add just to that question a little bit of, did you find that people were more hungry for newsletters during the pandemic and us communicating with them than they were previously?
Yeah, definitely. In the early days, normally we send out a weekly e-news, but in the early days we were doing it twice a week. And I was very, very hesitant to do that because sometimes you run the risk of people tuning out when you send them too many newsletters. But listening in to educational sessions like these with the ABA and GLIBA early on, the message was, don't be afraid of that, just do it. And we did, and it didn't hurt us at all. And as I said, those open rates in the early days were ridiculously high. I've never seen open rates like that. And the click-through rates as well. People were just hungry to connect, hungry for information, wanted to make sure we were still there, that we were still okay, which was very heartwarming. And then, after a certain point, we realized that was no longer needed. And so we went back to just doing our weekly e-news. We also do monthly e-newses, though. We curate pre-orders, about 20 per month. We send a monthly newsletter for that. And then we also send a monthly events newsletter. And we might do, a dedicated event-specific newsletter here and there, but we try not to get too crazy with sending a lot of newsletters all at once.
Right. We send one per week as well. And we certainly saw increases in click-through rates as well. We also do two children's, specifically children's newsletters per week. And of course, we were also using that channel to communicate changes in store policy capacity regarding things like curbside pickup, shipping, and eventually reopening. One thing that I think we will move towards, if the question of overloading or barraging people is a concern, is giving people the possibility of selecting between different types of newsletters that they want to receive from you. So people soon for us will be able to select whether they want to receive the weekly sort of new releases, or also the children's, et cetera, and so on. Marina?
Indeed, yeah. So it's weekly, and then we do have bi-weekly children's newsletter. And for a while, while our stores were closed, it was basically our selections, our front list buys that we wanted to feature. I think we were just really putting emphasis on curated book lists And another thing, I guess, is that in addition to that, we would also feature our digital catalog there. There'll be like a whole section. And again, it was as simple as putting the cover, the book cover, and linking it to the booklet. So it's very easy to integrate that medium into our newsletter.
Yeah. And so that kind of ties into the other question that we get that is in the chat box are you able to use the catalog on different platforms? And also question about the design of the catalog. Was that done with a professional designer outside of your store, or did you have someone on staff that worked on that?
Yeah. There is a feature on Simple Booklet. You can embed it into your website. We found it because our, it's typically 30, 40 pages. It was hard to load that page. So what we started doing is we created a tab on our website with it's like a drop down where we have archive of all of the issues, and they will lead to Simple Booklet website. You can also create your own domain, I believe, which we don't do. It's optional. We would just advertise Simple Booklet on social media. We put it in our link tree. And like I said, we would just have like a dedicated page on our website. And as far as designs go, we did not have an in-house graphic designer. What we did essentially is we looked at the old archives of front table, kind of like display, like a fold, a trifold. And we kind of tried to mimic that style. There's like a specific font, and we'll send the link. It's very simple design. They're only we'll produce a few elements, and then we'll just be creative about placing. And I guess another thing that is that is interesting is that the way that we would structure the catalog would sort of try, again, replicate browsing experience by having categories, right? Like literature, mystery, cookbooks, etc. And we would try putting designs on the titles of those sections. Again, they're not very sophisticated, and we became really good at reusing what we have. Would create one design and then would apply it to a lot of pages, actually. Would just create like a layout. And then I guess one thing that is useful to mention is that we would put time in producing pages that will recur in every issue. For example, we had a page about our mission. We had a page about our children bundles. It's like a bundled book list. And so those would just plug in, and it's kind of like we did it once and then we just reuse it. And for Spring Guide, we changed like the color to kind of, with like a little bit of a spring vibe, I guess.
Sure. Mary, did you see any questions in the chat that I didn't cover?
No, I think you got them all, Tim.
Okay. We've got just a couple minutes left. If anybody has a question they'd like to ask on the screen, we'd be able to do that.
In the interest of time, Tim?
Yeah.
I don't know if people can hear me.
Yes.
Oh yeah, it's Joanna. I'm from BookBug, and this is a bookstore in Kalamazoo. I'm so curious. All of you have, first of all, given such great ideas, but the theme of this session was lessons learned from the pandemic, and how have each of what you've learned, and maybe more specifically these platforms, how will they endure, and how are you going to see them perform continuously as we continue to sort of evolve in the ways that we serve customers? Are you still quite interested at Seminary in providing that digital experience continuously, no matter what the state of the actual physical shopping in your store is? Are your customers responding to that still?
Great question. Thank you for that. yes, we're still committed to the catalog. Obviously, it was very important when the doors were closed. However, because again, we just reuse a lot of things that we put in there, like the selection of books that we already have, things that we learned, and because the digital catalog really helped us shape idea of like how we want to proceed with our marketing campaigns, because it's so easy to reuse and recycle and repurpose that catalog. You can, trim it down and put it in newsletters. You can create a marketing campaign out of the content that you already have in it. We found it very helpful just in general for the department to kind of like strategically use our time. For virtual events, it was very interesting to have this experience to distribute labor by partnering with museums or other institutions, and it proved that it's beneficial for both partners. Not only do we both do what we know best, but we also enrich each other's event programming. There's not, it could be more effort if we did all of this by ourselves, but it really helped us to have less effort, but the same amount of thought that we put into programming.
Yeah. Okay. Larry, I know we're right at time.
Yes, all right. Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Marina. Thank you, Alana. This was fantastic. It has been recorded. I'm also going to save the chat. So probably later, it'll probably be up tonight. This video and the chat will be saved on the Heartland Fall Forum website. So please check that out. And join us again next week for some more education. But thank you all for coming.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.